Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Coming up on the Payoff, Hollie Strano is a meteorologist in Cleveland, Ohio, but that's not what this is about. Hollie Strano is sober today after a public rock bottom that has really led to a new chapter in her life, which, if you're watching this on YouTube, or even if you're just going to listen to this podcast, it's oozing off of her, right? I always call it in my version of recovery, the sunlight of the spirit. Hollie is in a special place in her life after being in a very dark one, and she's open and honest about that. She joins us today with her wellness coach, Christine. They're in Cleveland, Ohio. Obviously, we're in Texas, but this is a next level conversation, if you ask me. And it's really, really cool for her to this is the first interview she's done on the other side of this, what was a public situation. So we get into all that. But we get into the solution, and she gets vulnerable. And again, I mentioned Christine, her wellness coach. It was nice to have her to kind of guide us along, and give us a lot of information that I needed help with, just kind of sorting through. But it's just a special conversation, one that I'm really proud of, and one that I know Hollie is too. So, Hollie Strano is coming up. But first, big bro, Kevin Sousa. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I love people. The reason that I started this podcast is because when I was on my journey in sobriety, it was people like you, people that were notable folks in the public eye that would trumpet the fact that they were in recovery, or that they're sober, or they're recovering from something. And before I was ready to get sober, I could cling to those things. I could cling to your story, and kind of drop in on recovery. So I think what you're doing is just really important. And so I appreciate you, and I appreciate being vulnerable and spending time.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And you have Christine with you. Christine is your wellness coach.
She is.
Yeah, and it's great to have Christine in the room with us as we do this. And I want to shift back to you, though, Hollie. 22 years in Cleveland on the air, right? 23. So a lot of which have come, in the morning phase of the newscast day. I know what that's like, and people that listen to this know that I work mornings. Describe, though, what that is like. Your show, I don't know if it always started at 4 a.m., but it did for the majority. You worked on mornings for the majority of the time you've been on the air. What is that like, that working that day part?
Not normal would be my simple answer, but I am a morning person, if that makes sense. So I always felt like it associated with my personality, and I really loved it as a mom all these years. My kids are teenagers now, and it's a different phase, but I was able to be home to get them off the bus, to make dinner, to do homework, to do all those things at the sacrifice of sleep. But I think a lot of mothers, fathers, for that matter, can relate to that.
Yeah, you had the opportunity being, especially working mornings. There's a personality type you mentioned, and there's also an opportunity to connect with folks on the other side. How personal has that experience been for you, and how much has that meant for you to be able to be that type of personality that when people see you around town, they feel like they know you? That you're not just a newsreader. You're a personality with real personality.
Honestly, it's the biggest compliment that I get, and one that I take pride in. And I said it back in college. I feel like I think back to when I knew what I wanted to do, And I'd love to sit here and tell you that I was this big nerd and grew up, measuring snow in my backyard in Lyndhurst, but that was not the case. I mean, I grew up watching the Dick Goddards and Don Websters and people in Cleveland and felt like they were my friends. And so that was really what drew me to wanting to do the path that I did with television. And I knew it from a really early age. So back to your question, it is not uncommon for me to be in a grocery store or anywhere for 2 hours because I'm extremely flattered by it. When someone comes up to me and says, "You made my day," or it's usually something that has nothing to do with what I do for a living. It's just literally that feeling of they know me. And that's the biggest compliment that anyone can get. I almost have a harder time with people that are in this industry. And I would even attribute some of that to leveling up to, you hear stars saying like, "Oh, the fans." I mean, that's why I'm here. If it wasn't for those people walking up to me in a grocery store and sharing moments, be it about raising kids or, sleep talk, what are you making for dinner? Why are you buying that edamame? Oh, my daughter loves it. It's just really a compliment. And I'm not, I guess, I feel like I'm just like anyone else. I don't consider myself to be something special. I consider myself to be just like anyone and blessed to be able to have those people that allow me into their homes. It's a privilege. It's a privilege. And I, to this day, know that it's quite the privilege that they choose to think of me as a friend, as family, as maybe an extended sister or whatever the case may be.
Well, now they see you as an inspiration. I mean, you opened up about some of the stuff with anxiety and you had been vulnerable about mental health stuff in the past. But, now you talk about your journey in sobriety. What are these people saying to you now when they engage with you? I would imagine some of those interactions are more profound than ever.
Very profound. I mean, I'll go back to the mental health and anxiety first, because that was something that I came out with in 2017. And it was really hard. When I say hard, it was scary. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I am pretty transparent and known for that. And I think that was, at the time I did it, something that wasn't done a lot. And I felt the need for people to realize that even though I go on TV and I am a positive person by nature, I have days too. And I do have anxiety. I do. And that attributed to my problems with drinking, quite honestly. So at the time when I came out with my mental health and transparency about having anxiety and what I was going through, that was profound. And so many people connected to me about their stories. And isn't that what it's all about? I always think that I want to help others. I want people to know that they're not alone. We actually called the series at the time, "You're Not Alone," because you're not. And I know that it helped feed me too, because when I was able to connect with others that said, "Oh my goodness, you mean I'm not the only one that feels this way?" No. And I think at times, if you have anxiety or whatever the case may be, from whatever it is, and what I really had to learn, Pete, because when I did the anxiety part in 2017, my biggest struggle with it was there's way bigger anxiety issues than I have. Does that make sense?
100%.
And I had to understand that anxiety is anxiety, period. No matter what it is, if it's from PTSD because you were in a war or because of loss or whatever the case, anxiety is anxiety. And that gave me strength to be able to talk about my story of anxiety. What I did for a long time was kind of hide it within me, because I felt like, how can I talk about anxiety when there are people struggling way worse than what I, in my own mind, thought I had? When I came out with that, it was profound. And so that was the start of it. But what people didn't know was that to cope with my anxiety, I was drinking.
And and so now people do know that, right? And now they have the opportunity to talk to you about that too. What has it been like for you to be able to carry a torch now on the other side, with even more about you being revealed. Again, like you seem, I can tell, really. I mean, I've never met you, but you're authentic, and like it's so hard to stuff something from the people that, whether it's your family or whether it's your family, like I said, on the other side of the glass, like whatever screen they're watching on nowadays, you're connecting with them and that you feel close to them. Now you almost get one more opportunity to reveal another part of your personality and share it with them and help them. Have you gotten any feedback on that? I know you have, because I've followed you.
A lot. It's been a lot. I don't know where to start with this one. I'm going to try not to get too emotional. I'm not afraid of that. But one thing I'll start with saying is this, and I hope this makes sense. I would never have thought that something so tragically horrific in my life would have such a profound impact on me. Yeah. And I'm remorseful for that day. I don't know that I ever won't be. How could I not be? But what I can tell you is that that day had to happen. It was something that had to happen to put me on the path that I'm on. And I wouldn't have said it to you that night. I didn't know what I was saying that night. I wouldn't have said it to you maybe even the next day. But in all the work that I've done with Christine, and it's hard work, I have been able to figure out why it happened. It had to. I had to be really shocked into a different road. And I called it, when it first happened to me, I've done a lot of journaling, and I named my journal my turning point, with kind of the pun intended of driving. And it really was my turning point. And I also, it took about, a week? No, not a week. It took like 6 weeks for me to watch that. Yeah. So that all came out, the accident, when I say that, and I could not watch it. I went dark on social and this is someone that, I very
You're engaging.
Transparent.
Yeah.
I'm very engaging on social. I've built all my platforms on my own. Yeah. And I couldn't look. And I finally did. And that was something. So to have the realization that I walked out of that car, Pete, that accident makes me sick to my stomach to watch still. And I didn't have a scratch on me. I walked out of that car with not a scratch, and I didn't hurt anybody. I know there's different beliefs, and I don't want to offend anybody, but if it's God or the universe or whatever you believe in, there is something that is definitely that was holding me that night. And I, from that day forward, said, my work here is not done. And the new journey has begun. And it was really, really tough at first. Christine always said, we're swimming through shark-infested waters. And it really felt like Jaws was like tailing me for about 3 weeks. I was in such shock. And I think Christine can talk more about this in a way that makes sense, because I'm not a professional in this way. But I literally have no memory, just because I believe, and I think it's what she told me I had. PTSD from it. I was in complete and total shock for probably 2 or 3 weeks.
And is that the room where you guys get together? Like, are you in the space where you would see Christine, like where you're sitting right now today?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Are you guys in the physical space where you guys would meet? You are?
No,
okay.
We're not.
Okay.
But I started with Christine, I think, 2 days after the accident? 3?
It was 2 days. It was I'm a 23-year trauma therapist by trade. So that helps. I actually have a partner We have a couple of businesses that we own. One of them is a diversion program for OVIs. So I am the kind of clinical director of that program. And so that program is kind of special because of its innovation. You know, we think of anybody who's had an OVI, you know, there is a usually state by state, you know, I think you're from Texas.
Yeah, I'm from Philadelphia. I live in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So depending on your state, you know, your laws, you know, how they want to treat, you know, intoxicated driving or impaired driving. And so in the state of Ohio, there is a program that offers diversion, right? So you kind of get a choice as to whether you just want to go, you know, take your consequence, or do you want to, you know, be in a diversion program. So the other company that flow through here to Hollie is that we do, I am involved with the diversion program. And so we take a very unique approach to it, as we see this as a huge opportunity to intervene in people's lives at a critical point when change is really optimal. Because I don't know if you believe this, but sometimes you have to get good and uncomfortable to change, right? Mm-hmm. So here we have folks that are suffering financial consequences, personal consequences, the routines are changed, maybe they don't have their license. You know, we have this 72-hour window that we work with them overnight for 3 consecutive days. And we can kind of take people out of their day-to-day lives and expose them to a plethora of ideas, concepts, education, and insight about themselves. So that's how I kind of get involved. Because Hollie was going to have to go through the court process and in a very public way. And so that's how we met. Mm-hmm. And she was terrified, absolutely terrified. As everybody knows, it was Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I was not working. I had asked, you know, not asked, I'm the boss. I asked myself, I guess, to take, you know, this hard break. And I got a phone call from an attorney that said, hey, you know, we kind of have a situation here. And so I got engaged in it. And I met Hollie literally the day after. We began our work then, and we have worked together almost every day since. So if we're talking about somebody who has put in the work, she has put in the work. And she came in that day willing and ready to do anything she needed to do to get better, to be well. And I think I've heard it all before, of course, you know, working in the addictive pattern space, as we like to say, or trauma or anything in mental health. Everybody is willing in the moment of being really uncomfortable and getting a lot of consequences to do whatever. But to her credit, the amount of commitment that she has put in, the willingness to get up every day and to experience whatever we need to get through that day, and to do it on a public platform. Yeah. You know, it's impressive. She deserves all that credit. And she's doing the work. You know, the work is a continuum, as you know, when you're in a space of change or just understanding how life works, Pete, like we're always doing the work. Yes. It's when we stop doing the work that then we get in trouble. Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be going back to drinking or whatever our situation is. The work, if I get away from my recovery for a couple weeks, not only do I start to feel it, but everybody around me starts to feel it. And that's no good for people involved in my life. And, and that's something that Hollie touched on. It's just amazing what can come out of this. These, my rock bottom, right? My gift of desperation, much like Hollie's, different circumstances. But the last thing I thought was that it was going to lead to a fulfilling life and where I would have an opportunity to be a part of, leading other people through the dark, right? That like Hollie, your story is so unique, and people all around, your city and
well, outside of that, no, you're going to be able to be a light for those people. It's an incredible opportunity, and keeping, doing the work continues to keep that flame burning. When you went in there and you get to meet Christine, where was your head at for those first few days? For people that don't know what it's like, you don't remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay.
No, and I was drinking. I was literally in shock.
Yeah.
I have very memory of it. I was horrified.
Yeah.
Very scared. Scared. I remember, a few days in, those first few weeks were very rough for me. And then slowly but surely, we started, learning techniques. The easiest thing about this journey for me, ironically, and, looking, of course, now that I'm looking at comments and I'm actually, as I talk to you today, I know this is going to be airing a few days after, but I'm 21 weeks sober today. I think it's 21.
Oh, we do weeks. Makes me think of.
I know. Everyone, I have to stop doing weeks because I'm like, I'm getting questions of, are you pregnant? I'm not. Let's start that rumor. Well, I was 5 months last week, so it has to be 21 weeks today. But no, I just, it was a few weeks in, and then the work is really hard. And what's really hard for me sometimes, and being so engaged in social, and then I came out on social and apologized and showed, some of the really personal parts of this journey, like my Grandpa Sam's chair.
Yeah.
And of course, I know I'm going to get criticized. That's just part of it, right? We all know that. Anyone that's on television, radio, in the public, that's part of our job. Even before the accident, I get criticized for my lipstick color some days. So it's not that I'm not used to that part of what I do. And I am very aware of, I made a huge mistake that I will forever be remorseful for. But I think of the way I was brought up, and I believe in forgiveness. And a lot of the, criticism is, I could have killed somebody, and I could have, is the truth. And it was part of my apology. I'm well aware of that. And it literally still gives me nightmares. It's horrific to think that I could have killed somebody. Those are horrible thoughts, but I didn't, is the truth of the matter. So to go back and say, what if is not going to get me anywhere moving forward in this journey. I didn't kill anybody. Thank God. Nobody was hurt. There was nobody else in that car with me. Thank God. My children, any loved ones. I was alone. Thank God. Thank God. I'm getting a lot of criticism. I chose to get in that car. I didn't choose anything. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was drunk. I did not know. So the universe, God, whatever your beliefs are, was definitely carrying me that night. I do have memory, just to go back to it, because I feel like there's a little bit of curiosity of being on a road really, really scared. And that was my last memory. And then my next memory is a bang, which was the crash, obviously. And my next memory is asking about my children and making sure I had my phone, which some people, of course, critiqued on. It was really, to me, the video that was released, it's just this world that we live in, right?
It sucks,
and it's
in my opinion.
Well, I would say it's sad. Because these things happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not justifying the fact that they happen or that they're good, but my goodness, to be that vulnerable and to have my kids watch that, and if you don't think my heart continues to break, to know that my two children have seen their mother in that video and had to go to school and face a lot of things, not to mention family members, and, screw the other stuff. I'm talking about my intimate group, my significant other and things in my life that are so precious to me. And to be put on a platform, I couldn't understand. I thought, what is this? And why is this? Why is this what we're choosing to focus on. And then what has still amazed me is that my mugshot picture got more exposure than my professional pictures. I mean, even to the point of announcing my return, I'll just say that. And I'm okay with that, girl. You know, I could have gone on and had stuff erased and taken things off the internet and chosen to go that route, but I'm owning it. And she existed, and I give her grace, and I've forgiven her, and I've moved on.
Moving up to that, I just want to go back real quick because this was, it's just relatable for me. I struggled with alcohol for a while. Was there a period where you had noticed you were maybe coping with your anxiety with alcohol and you thought, this is a bit of an issue, and you tried to stop up until the moment in late November when you did stop? Was there a back and forth ever? Because that's, yeah.
Yes. I used it alcoholic, right? I feel like and Christine can maybe, I don't know that I'm the pro to talk about the proper definition of one. Am I? I guess you would, by definition, say anyone that has more than, I think if you look it up, 2 drinks a day is one. So I guess so at the time. I haven't had a drink since, but I don't miss it. So yes, I used it to self-medicate.
Yeah.
I definitely used it as a way of breathing when I was anxious. I was not waking up and drinking. I didn't drink at work. I was using it in a way to cope with feelings of we've worked on. I mean, it's personal, but feelings from the past and things that I've gone through in my life, and that all build up to why we have anxiety, why I have PTSD, why I have the things that I do. And now that I'm working through them and learning the tools that I don't need alcohol to cope, and I don't even miss it.
What are some of the work you guys mentioned? That's when it goes back. I asked about that room because I figure wherever you guys have been getting together, special stuff has been happening. What's some of the work that you have been doing? It gets emotional. It's hard. And again, it's sure there are incredible benefits, but work, they use that word for a reason. What is some of the work that you guys have been doing? Either you can answer this question.
And then I'm going to let Christine. Yes, I'm going to just say this, then I'm going to let Christine chime in. I mean, one of the biggest things that is hard for me to look at on social or any platform is that I got a wrist slap and I'm doing nothing. Like it's as if I'm home getting my nails done. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I'll let her talk about it. I mean, we are doing things that I have learned through only Christine, EMDR, a lot of emotional work, it's not easy, and you have to do the work, and I've done it, and I think she can expand better than I can.
Well, not to get too technical with anything, I like to work with people in any space around their body and their body chemistry. So we use some tools that maybe aren't as well known. It's a little bit of a cocktail out of working in this space for as long as I have. And so what we know is that our body and how our body is, the state that it's in is going to be the starting point for our capacity to handle life, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So if we are unwell physically, or we are doing things inadvertently to our body, and we are causing the systems in our body to behave in a way that is not optimal, the chances of us being able to handle high degrees of stress or high performance, like being on TV or being a pro athlete, or really asking your body to perform in a way, is just going to be harder, and especially in the mental realm, right? So we do things a little differently. She mentioned EMDR. It is the beginning of a lot of work that I do to kind of calm down the heightened state that we get into when we are struggling. So we have different systems. We have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system, and we're kind of designed to be on and off based on, what's going on in our life. So we have this wonderful, primitive survival tools that keep us from getting into really dicey situations. And the unfortunate piece is that we can turn these systems on and not know they're on, and then be operating in a daily capacity in a survival.
So
way.
just trying to survive. Yep.
Yeah. And
is that fight or flight?
Yep. And there's wonderful work that, of course, I'm talking about. Our Bessel van der Kolks are Stephen Porges and polyvagal theory. And this is very much the neurobiology of mental health and addiction. So here we do a couple of different things. So we get to know who we're working with really well. We have techniques, and one of the kind of immediate ones we employ here is definitely EMDR, which is
exhausting and hard.
It is exhausting and hard. It's really an interesting technique, but it allows us,
but freeing in the end.
Yes, it's the hard work. And it's eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. And Francine Shapiro is the one who started this. It was when it came onto the scene, it was very much like, oh, this is weird, or, what is this you're doing? And I just like to call it physical therapy for the brain. Mm-hmm. So when the brain is struggling, it's a technique we can use to help it get a little physical therapy. Pete, I don't know how much time you spent in the mental health space, but we don't have a lot of diagnostics, which we should question and start to challenge, that we need more diagnostics in the mental health space.
Can you explain that to people? Like what exactly, like what you mean by that?
Yeah.
It's so important.
So, basically we're struggling and we hear, go to your doctor or go see a therapist, right? Now, I think this is really unique and a really exciting time for health in general, particularly mental wellness and health, is because we, as a whole human race, experienced a collective trauma of COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So we all now know what it feels like to have trauma. Before it was, kind of these textbook things like, oh, you went to Afghanistan, you're in the military, you're a police officer, or you were sexually assaulted, or you were held up at gunpoint. And this was reserved as, this is what trauma is. We talk a lot about big T's and little T's. Big T's are like, of course, those situations where something really bad happens and you fear for your life. And little T's are equally as dangerous. And that could be something as simple as being raised by an alcoholic or being in a particularly toxic relationship. It could be as a little T as being in an
I'm over here like check. So I relate. Yeah. I've been there both. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And most of what I do is in the beginning is really helping people understand that concept that, hey, I've been through some stuff. And then we dig into, well, how do I react to that? And so one of, I think, is a tagline I use a lot, as I call people bad chemists. I accuse people of being just bad chemists. Funny, we don't as humans.
It was a horrible chemist.
I was terrible. Yes.
Oh
my gosh. Like I got I want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't do what doesn't work, right? Alcohol works. I hate to say it, on a chemistry level, it's doing something to right a ship that's imbalanced. And that's a really interesting concept for people, unless we pull back the curtain. We talk about excitatory neurotransmitters, this thing called glutamate, this balance in the body between GABA and glutamate. We take that all a step further here because we actually work with your genetics. So we have a panel that we grab.
And I did have my genetics all tested.
And so what that does is it gives me insight as into how Hollie's container works.
Did you have any alcoholism?
So it expedites.
I just want to ask Hollie, did you have any alcoholism in your family that you could trace or know or no? Okay.
Well, yes. Okay. Yes, but not in the sense of anyone that ever got like treatment.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Family is Italian, half Hungarian. I'll let you I'm not criticizing them, but I grew up with, Sunday dinner and spaghetti and endless bottles of wine at the table. My grandfather, who I adore, who I have his chair. I mean, it was responsible drinking, but I grew up around drinkers. I mean, at Christmas and all the fish and all the cocktails, and just that was my life. Not to say that they were what I would put in the category of raging alcoholics, like had issues. They were a wonderful family, but I grew up with that. Yes. I grew up around drinkers. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I didn't have alcoholism in my family, like so-and-so got in trouble. Yep. I'm trying to explain it in a way that other people, hopefully whoever is listening now, watching this, understands. Both my ethnicities are very much celebrate with alcohol and food and partying and both sides, and to this day, when I attend family events, that stuff is a part of it.
For you and the work that you've done with Christine, how has that enabled you to now, because a lot of times these scenarios that can happen when we get sober or when we stop drinking, regardless of what the reason is, it can be like a little more difficult to go into these social situations initially, right? Like having been sober for a while, as long as I call it spiritually fit, there's no place I can't go, right? If I have a singleness of purpose, if there's a reason for me to be there really is any. I didn't get sober to go to more meetings and just, I love my recovery and stuff like that, but I got sober to live out there and have a blast and enjoy life and to maybe help some people. For you, I didn't even think about the helping people. Now I've noticed that's something maybe I can do, right? But for you, how has it been to kind of go back out there and connect with people in a different way?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, the drinking is not an issue at all. I love not drinking. It's the happiest I've ever been, is the truth. So that part, I don't think about it at all. I don't feel like walking in a bar is weird because I can have fun without it. So that part has not been an issue whatsoever. People around me still drink. I don't expect them not to. It doesn't work with me because of my chemistry and what it does to me mentally. So I'm not going to drink ever again. What going out in public has been for me initially, now I'm much more at ease, but before I was horrified. I'll never forget my significant other and I this is going back a bit. It was the weekend of New Year's and we were on a ride and he said, let's stop at Safe Fish, get something nice to make for dinner. And it was my first walking into a place. And I was so scared of what people would say to me, how they would react. I was just so scared of, someone coming up to me and just, I was prepared because that's okay. And I was also prepared to apologize to whoever that person was. Well, to my surprise, we went into State Fish and it was fine. And everybody was happy to see me and those good things. We got back in the car and, he gave me a big hug and said, how did that feel? And I said, good. He said, okay, you want to go to the West Side Market? I took a deep breath. State Fish, for those of you in Cleveland, it's right there. And the West Side Market was person to person. And there we were. And like I said earlier in this conversation, I love being in public and embracing people and hugging. And I feel like I'm part of you, just like you feel like you're part of me. And that's exactly how that experience was. Brad and I walked into the West Side Market and it was wall to wall with people buying what they were buying for New Year's Eve. And it was a little weird as I heard that's Hollie Strano as I would walk by a group and some people came up to me and hugged me. And there was a lot of thank you for what you're doing. And thank you for, having the bravery to come out there and talk about it and then telling me their stories. And I think it was early on because I'm going back to December for this part of it. I still wasn't doing much on air at that point, other than I think just I was on my social platforms. But that was when I knew and something clicked in me that there's more, there is much more. And I can't define that, but I just know, Pete, that there's a lot more for me. And when I say that in the means of helping others. When I say my work here isn't done, it's not. And I want to. That's, I feel like, what I'm made to do. And I think that Christine knows that and knew it from the beginning. I've been saying this for a long, long time. And sometimes we can't see it right away, but the vision is becoming more and more clear to me. And I think that being able to help, just, I would always say this back in the mental health days in 2017, if I can help one person, that's something, right?
Yeah.
So the biggest scare for me was going out. I'm not afraid. And I've been embraced. I've been hugged. I've been lifted off the floor at Trader Joe's, like, with hugs. Can we just hug you? Like, I went to do my house payment and the teller put a Kit Kat in there. So I ate it for lunch. It's just so nice to be embraced. And yes, there's a lot of criticism too, but I find most of my criticism is all behind a computer screen.
I'm going to read this because you put this on social media and I love this. You said Brene Brown, she defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. I love that quote because I think it embodies shame. And I think shame, like, I love the part of this conversation when you did a really terrific job of articulating. You weren't at all throwing by the wayside what had happened, but it had happened, and you were looking forward now. How have you been able to live free or work to live free of the shame? Because all the shame does for me in my life is it cuts me off from the sunlight that can help other people. If I'm immersed in shame, I'm being selfish because then I got a lot of self-pity and then I'm useless to the rest of the world. How have you been able to work through your shame to continue to be a light?
I think one of the biggest lines told to me, and Christine, I'm giving her full credit for this, was that I refuse to feel shame for something that has so profoundly changed my life. And every time I start to feel it, because we're all human and we're going to have those moments, right? I say that. I refuse to feel shame for something that has so profoundly changed my life. I'm a better person because of that horrific, explosive, movie-worthy, when I say like something that you'd see in a movie accident, like when I watch it, I can't believe that I walked out of it without a scratch. I'm just going to say that again. I can't believe it. Walking into this just made me think of the police department for the first time after. And you want to talk about a moment of gratitude to get driving privileges and having the people in that department hug me and say, I'm going to cry, say that they're rooting for me. I mean, in Cuyahoga Falls. So every time I feel shame, and I do, just because, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with having sad days, bad days, great days, empowering days. I think that you have to balance them with the good. And that is something I innately know how to do. It's just within me, if that makes sense. It's been in me since I was born. But Christine has been able to bring it out in me in a way that is stronger than it's ever been. And I'll never justify what I did as right. It was completely wrong. I mean, I made a huge mistake. Did I know what I was doing that night? No, but that's not an excuse. That's the truth. It's not an excuse. And so I said, I'm sorry. I pled guilty. I went through everything I had to as far as the court system. And I will continue to do everything I have to make myself a better and better version of myself. But I'm never going to be perfect because nobody is.
That experience. Go ahead. Sorry. You said, and I think that what?
No, I just think we all have this, especially with social media and this idealistic thing about perfection, and it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. We all have issues, and they're all relatable in some way, shape, or form. And I think that I've learned that you can't take what you're dealing with and compare it to someone else and feel bad that you're feeling bad about your own journey because maybe you're comparing it to someone else's that you think is worse. Does that make sense?
That's what you said earlier about the anxiety. It's the same.
Yeah,
it's the same.
I was doing that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So back to your shame question. I think that is my mantra, is that I really refuse to feel shame for something that has profoundly changed my life and world and has made me a better version of myself. And I'm going to continue to do the hard work. It's by no means over. I mean, I am just getting this party started.
And I think one of the interesting things is that it shows up, and we've talked through this. The shame shows up in your triggers, right? Things that you see people say about you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean,
phrases.
sometimes I can blow it off, and sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah. But a great example of like how she does the work is she'll bring something and she'll say, this really bothers me. I'm feeling something, because it's about getting back in your body, right? One of the things that substances do is it takes us out of our body, right? That's the whole point, right? That's why you guys are bad chemists. So we have to learn to come home, right? We got to learn to safely come home into our body and believe that it's not going to betray us, that we're going to be able to handle whatever we're doing, whatever we're thinking, whatever we're feeling, that we got to come home into our body, and that body's got to be well, and it's got to be ready, and it's got to be capable to do what we need to do, right? Mm-hmm. So when you get past that, we get that under, control. We get some things in place, get you on a healthy regimen, diet, lifestyle, things like that.
I promise I won't drink as many Diet Cokes the next time I talk to you.
Yes, that is what we're working at the moment.
And chocolate.
And so one of the big things is you notice things then, right? It's the noticing. You notice you're upset. You notice.
Yeah.
You notice you don't feel good. You notice something that was said, something triggered you, and something someone said triggered you. And so the question is not about, ooh, that person's a meanie bucket, or that person doesn't know me and we get defensive. It's about sitting with that just for a little bit and saying, why is this bothering me? Well, it's probably bothering us because it's something we don't like, right? Something we feel sensitive around. Mm-hmm. I won't say the phrase. You'll have to say the phrase.
Okay.
Like that phrase.
Being called a drunk.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, yes, on social, a lush, a drunk. I could put something up about the sunshine, or I could post a picture of a flower. And if the post, say, goes out at, or if it's something in the evening, a picture with my dogs. I don't even know. I'm not referring to anything specific, but it's, must be when the bars are open, you lush. And those things are still getting thrown out there. And it's hard to read that, knowing that I want to sometimes react to those people and say, no, I'm not. But then I thought, I don't have to prove myself to anybody but myself.
Yeah.
And it took a long time in this recovery. And I think that's one thing that I have already mastered, is to know that nobody has control over me but me. And I'm not going to let someone else's words define who I am. It might hurt because I'm human and I have days where I don't like to read that about myself, but it doesn't define me. And what Christine has really taught me, which I wasn't doing before November 23rd and that horrific night, was to sit in these emotions. And so sometimes sitting in the shit, don't mind my French, is something you have to do. You have to sit in it. You have to cry and release, and maybe have a moment of, boy, this feels really crappy,
Yeah, and I like to feel good. So that's very hard for me.
I do too. Yeah. Don't we all? But I have to sometimes, when I read a comment, you lush, you could have killed somebody. Yeah, I could have. And I have to sit in that moment and cry and then say, thank you, I didn't. And get through that moment. and not crack open some form of alcohol to numb my emotions to get through that moment. And thanks to this woman, I have been able to be strong enough to never, I mean, like I said, the easiest, I don't know how to describe it, but the easiest part of this is not, it's the last thing I want. The thought of alcohol actually makes me sick. Now, I'm not like opposed. I don't want people that think if they see me at a restaurant, they can't approach me because I'm fine. And like I said, I have a family that can wine on Sundays and all that, but it's just, I have no desire. It turned off in me as quickly as, so maybe that was all part of this sort of aha moment. And it was definitely an aha moment.
Well, when you mentioned that situation and there's little ripples of like restitution, some more official than others, right? You talk about walking into the police station to get driving privileges and seeing some of the faces and getting some of the hugs. This is in Cuyahoga Falls where all this went down. Those are some of the more esteem building things I think we do. To be able to walk in there with your head held high, but still a little vulnerable and get those big hugs. I was
so frightened.
I'm sure.
I was so scared.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, that's got to be terrifying. It's same thing for me, like on my journey, like going to make amends to former employers or whatever. It's just, and those are the situations I think, like the more and more we walk through those, I mean, the strength that we're building as people and our ability, again, to be on the other side of it and to be a torchbearer is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's empowering.
Yeah.
Not friends.
Yeah, it truly is.
Right?
How has your family responded to this? That's always like an interesting thing. Like
amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
Family didn't know. I'll be really transparent. They had no idea because there's been a lot of how could someone let you drive that night comments. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. I was hiding it. I mean, I have no problem being transparent and saying that. I was hiding it. I was using it to cope. My family and I obviously had built up a tolerance to where nobody knew that I was as intoxicated as I was when that was occurring. And so nobody knew. Of course, they knew I drank, but it wasn't like these interventions happened prior to that where my family was coming up to me and saying, you know what I mean?
And your family background, you seems like a pretty strong, tough family where they're kind of like,
no, they're very supportive.
Yeah. That's the impression I got.
100%.
Have you been able to use this as an opportunity with your kids at all? To like, your children probably look at you as being very strong now, as opposed to however they may have felt when all this went down. Not that they would have ever lacked love, but I think what I'm describing.
It's for the hardest part about this is my children for me. It is because I'm their mom and I'm working on it with them because obviously there's a lot to process there, but they are really proud. And I mean, I had a moment just last night. My daughter is going to Notre Dame to college and said, Mom, I want you to post this. And I haven't posted it. And I don't post since the accident. I really, there's been a lot of questions, how are your kids? What are your kids doing? And I'm really rethinking a lot about how much I share about that part of my life on social. I'll put everything about me out there, but that part is, it's a lot and it's a lot for them. I mean, being in this business my entire life, they didn't even know I was on TV. I never made a big deal about it to them. So they haven't really had to have moments of people saying like, that's your mother until they got older because they never knew. I just never made a big deal about it. So now they know, and now they really know, and they had to deal with the video and things like that. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've dealt with in my life. And obviously, we've really been, I would say, brought together even closer as a family because of this experience. And yes, they are proud of my strength, and it makes me cry because isn't that what we want as parents, is to just do the best for our kids? And I never did want to not do the best for my children. So having them behind me and supporting me and saying, that's my mom and she's doing all this hard work, and having a daughter say, I want you to post this on social media about me going to Notre Dame was something that I'll never forget. It was pretty monumental for me last night when I made that.
It was pretty awesome. Yeah. I mean, you said it, I didn't. I want to like start talking about that. But yeah, I thought that was like.
No, I mean, that was the first time I've thrown her out there. I've had a lot of people, asking about Jessica and Grady. And I will never, just post to post my children. But she asked. And so I was proud to do it.
What does the work look like from here, Christine? Like, how do we continue to keep this ball rolling? I'm asking both of you. Like, obviously, I know Hollie, you're right there, but how do we continue to keep keep this momentum going?
I think one of the most impressive things people can do when they get into this space and they work with a professional and they start to explore, the capacity of being human, right? Like, when they start to give themselves some credit for the tough stuff they can do and have trusted professional people that are well educated and are, I'm going to challenge a lot in my own profession that this is a time for us to be innovators. This is the time for us to come out and say, we want more. We want more diagnostics. We want to know more about people. We want, we don't just want to hear see a psychiatrist or go sit on a couch. That there's so many tools out there. There's so much more to mental wellness, being human, trauma, than, a DSM or just taking medicine or this being a one-off or those diagnostic catchphrases like ADHD or bipolar, things like that, the searching to label. Let's go back to who we are as humans and make sure as humans, we're doing the things that our body needs to function correctly. Let's start there. Are we eating well? Are we taking care of ourselves? What are we doing? What are we exposing ourselves to? Are we bad chemists? Are we trying to get a result in the quickest way with the only tools we know how? There's so much to explore. So what I hope is that everybody I work with gets this healthy sense of curiosity as to the why. Why, and I can sum up a lot of work there with people. Like, we start asking ourselves all the time, why are we doing this? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I wanting? Why, if you start to engage in that why, you start to open up a discussion, a safe discussion around what could possibly be going in or happening that might be in your blind spot. And I think when people start using substances, they don't understand that the human body loves habit and it likes to go fast and it doesn't want to think about everything. So if you introduce something into a system that's already anxious, something like alcohol, which has the component to work on a substance in the brain called GABA, which is our natural relaxant, right? Take that drink, you feel relaxed, right? That you are teaching that this is an option, that this is something I should be able to do, and it's here for me to do. And the human brain will be like, okay, I'm not even going to let you think about that. I'm just going to tap you subconsciously and say, you need a drink, or I'm stressed out. And that's where that bad chemistry comes in. You're really trying to just relax. You're really trying to just mitigate something in your life that is not working for you. And the big problem is if we don't make those changes, we can slip into a pattern in life. We are just mitigating everything away.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get through when we should have made a change a while back, when maybe this is too much, or maybe I don't have the tools that I need, or I don't have the support I need, or maybe my body is not healthy enough to deal with this. So I guess our work, like I said, everybody is stay curious and keep looking for something that works for you. Hollie was in treatment before. And, a lot of people will stay in treatment sometimes and not challenge in the way they need to. I always say as a patient or a client, you best. Teach me about you. And then if we need to get better together, that's our phrase. Here we get better together. It's not about me being an expert on you. You're the expert on you. I'm going to give you everything I got. And it's either going to land on you in the right way and you're going to start to be able to make these changes easier, or they're not, and then I'm not the person for you. But you have to take that responsibility. And one of the things Hollie did that I was so impressive that day one that she doesn't remember.
I mean, kind of.
She kind of remembers. She wasn't completely. I will challenge. She says not a scratch, and I do believe there was some concussion in there. But so I mean, you can't really hit an airbag like that and not have something happen.
Yeah, every airbag in my car was deployed.
So the one thing she doesn't remember is she sat there and was authentic as you could be. A lot of times, as therapists or as clinicians, we got to work through people's walls. We can see that where, someone's throwing up a wall or someone's, trying to divert us or things like that. And one of Hollie's number one strengths that she can credit to getting as far as she's gotten is her authenticity. She had no desire to hide anything in those sessions, which is huge. It just makes our work easier.
Did you find, Hollie, that I think this question's already been answered, but I think one of the things when I saw you first post after all this, you were so accountable. And I think that you're underselling that a little bit. Like that's not a given for stuff like this to happen to people and they're accountable and you didn't point the finger at anybody else. You took full accountability. That to me seems like it's somebody who was ready to embrace a new life, right? And now it kind of oozes out of you. Like you were saying earlier, I'm not sure how to describe it. You don't have to, like your aura describes it now. It's very true. And so did you feel that accountability right away?
Yes. Yeah. It's who I am. It's who I am. And I think that that's one of the things about me that makes me believe that this new, I'm going to call it I feel like I'm using a lot of, but this new road that I'm on, so to speak, is one that is going to, I think, help so many. And I know it is deep down in me. I know I can't define or say, and I'm not like holding a secret by saying I can't say, it's something that's evolving within myself as we speak. And I want to, without sounding cliche, I want to make this crappy world a better place. I want to help. And I think I'm living proof that it can happen. And there are ways to heal yourself that maybe aren't traditional ways. And I think that some of the things that I've done, all of these things happen for a reason. I mean, you can believe that they do, they don't. I'm a firm believer of things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer that the accident happened for a reason. I mean, I am, as horrific as it was. And so thank you for that, because that's a huge compliment. And I do feel like it's something that I will always be, is authentically me, because what else is there if we're not authentic in ourselves? That's what I was authentic before this and transparent, but was hiding my bad chemistry because I was embarrassed. I knew it was wrong deep down. Deep down, I think there was a part of me that knew what I was doing to cope with those emotions. But when you're in the cycle, and I don't know if you can relate to this, Pete, when I was in that cycle of my life, it was a cycle. It was just a cycle.
When you're in it, you're in it.
You're just in it. It's a horrible cycle. It's a horrible cycle to be in. And when I was in it and I was able to just stop. And so I never felt like I had an issue. But then when I would be in the cycles of it, I was really in the cycles of it. And now that I know that I have full reign over my body through Christine, and it's mind, body, spirit. It really is. It's a combination of all three of those things. No matter what you believe in, it's all of that. It is. And so I will always be authentic. And it was scary as hell to apologize publicly, but I felt the need to. I wanted to. That was totally for me. That was not would you do this? That was, I want to do this. And I did, because I am sorry.
What's the thing? Go ahead, Christine.
A lot of credit, but we started this program with her after meeting me, she then went into a 5-day intensive with our entire team. And our team is made up of a very diversified group of people. Some of them are in recovery, and brought that piece to Hollie as we worked out, what she needed as far as the modalities that are out there for sobriety, different recovery models, things like that. We have a lot of people on our team that have a lot of experience in all of these modalities. And we really just let the person pick what works for them. It's really not like a protocol or an edict or a mandate from us. It's really about providing options for people and then seeing what's landing on them, what feels good. So in that 5-day intensive, Hollie was exposed to a lot to see what resonated with her. And I don't think people are often given that choice, to kind of see what works for them. It's a much more grueling experience, I think.
I never left a hotel room for 5 days.
She did not.
And it was really intense. I have to say, I was so anxious about that because obviously I couldn't have my kids there, significant other, door taped at night, really intense, can't leave. And I thought, and it was early on. I'm thinking, how am I going to do this?
It's the holidays.
But I did.
It's around the holidays too, I imagine.
Yeah. It was actually like the week before Christmas.
Yeah.
But I did it, and it was one of the most profound things I've done in my life.
So I'll take the credit for the day-to-day work. This team of ours is really extraordinary, smart people, engaged people with skin in the game. As I like to say, everybody on our team has skin in the game. So we all know something personally, or we're affected by it in some way. I think it helps people stay aligned in motivation and be compassionate and keep their human pieces, that none of us are better than any one of us. Whether I'm the person doing the teaching for you, I am no better than you. You have something to teach me right back. So we're really humble, but we have it's not just me. I come with, trust me, some amazing, amazing folks that do things that I cannot do. And they deserve as much credit as I do. Trust me.
And I want to do like a thank you list right now, but I'll wait for that. That'll be next time. But it's true. And I consider us a family. I mean, you can't do this without intense support, and it is intense.
Yeah.
And
I've been
I'm
around
sure
this
you know that, Pete.
I've been around this for a while. I've never really heard of that 5-day intensive. That sounds pretty awesome. And it sounds like, that's the kind of stuff that's hardcore, in the positive sense.
Well,
sounds like a training camp or something. That's tough.
Hardcore, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I was doing push-ups in the hotel room. When you say training camp, I just maybe think of that.
Yeah.
No, that came out of that, and that I still do.
And as you know, Pete, there's different levels, right, of triaging where people are at. Addiction is a very physiological problem. So people, depending on where they're at, what substances they're using, and to the amount and frequency, determines some of our ability to have flexibility with what options you have, right? But there's so much. There's so much before people get to that place. Hollie just happened to be a person who we could catch, right before things got really bad physiologically. And I think there's a lot of people out there like that. I think there's a lot of people walking a line. And I will say post-COVID, I think COVID itself I'm known for this quote because my partner says it all the time, that I was talking about COVID and mental health and substance use right after we were all released from our homes again. And I talked about how dangerous this time period was because all of our mild drinkers turned into moderate drinkers. And then all of our moderate drinkers turned into severe. And this was done with no one hitting the alarm bell. No one hit the alarm bell. No one said, whoa. State of Ohio allowed people to order alcohol into their homes.
Yeah. It was a big thing in Texas too. They kept the drive-throughs open, and it was like, it had that, and being from Philly and you guys were in Ohio, it had that like snow day feel to it for a little while. It was like, wait, what are we doing here? It's like, this isn't like a free pass
Our governor's name is Mike DeWine, and they called it Wine with Wine. And when he would do his announcements, you saw on social media people saying, "Oh, it's wine with DeWine," and so we made tongue in cheek of this, and we should have been hitting alarm bells, because the consequence is that when humans are just reacting to their environment that's changing so drastically, or they're trying to cope with their tools, and then they get a consequence, we are so critical to say, oh, well, you don't know how to hold your liquor, you don't know how to handle stress, but look at so much of that was in play that we can't be critical. We can't say this is a character flaw. We can't say you don't know how to do this. This is actually something we kind of allowed without hitting an alarm bell and saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's our treatment professionals. We're doing it. Maybe me, I know I was talking about it as frequently as I could. I know our probation people were, our court systems probably were trying to say, hey, this is dangerous. But as a community, people like Hollie who have a platform, I always joke that no one really listens to me, actually.
Well, I hope they start now.
But right? When Hollie says something, or people like you say something, or you go out there, and say it could be really, really powerful. It could be the thing that gets someone to go, wait, like what? Like, oh yeah, maybe that is contributing to how my life kind of got out of control. Right.
Yeah. And I've had a couple of people, Pete, and I'm sure you have similar experiences on social posts, and I can't think of specific ones, but that have said, hey, I'm doing this with you, like on the post where I've said I'm this much. So, and I've had a couple literally chime in and say, I stopped and I haven't drank for 3 weeks. And I mean, that feels like Christmas. I don't know what else to say. I mean, wow. I think just me putting out a post that literally said on this many weeks or months inspired somebody enough to stop. I am so humbled, and that is why I will say it again. I know my work isn't done, and it's certainly not going to stop here.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's probably those things are just the beginning. Anything else, Hollie, you want to say, like just as we wrap up here, that you feel like we haven't touched on?
I would like to just thank all of you that have embraced me and forgiven me. And for those of you that haven't, I want to say that I understand and I respect you. And I hope that I can continue to prove to you that through this journey, I am learning, and I will forever be remorseful for what happened. And I can't take back that night. I wish I could. I think we all, when things like that, well, you know what? I don't wish I could. I don't. I'm going to say that because what I said before, if it would not have happened to me, I don't know that I'd be sitting here with you today in this way. I might still be drinking. I might be dead because of that. And because that happened to me, and again, I'm going to stress this, nobody was hurt. Nobody was in the car. Thank God, my kids, and nobody was hurt in that event. Because of that profound, life-changing incident, I am now on the best road I've been on. So I'll say what I said to you before, Pete. I refuse to feel shame for something that's profoundly changed my life. So for all of those of you that are coming up to me and hugging me and saying nice things, I literally sit and try to read every single comment, and the bad ones too. And I try to engage, and this is my social. A lot of you ask, are you really responding? Because people will talk about me in third person on my pages. It is me. So I do respond as much as I can. And so if I don't get to all of you, I apologize, but I really try to make an effort to do that. And for those of you that don't forgive me, I understand and I respect you. And I hope that one day you'll really see the woman that I am.
Well, thank you for showing us the woman who you are and showing, being so vulnerable and open and sharing this time. I cannot thank you enough. It's very cool.
Well, thank you for everything you do and for all the work that you're putting in, because you're changing lives.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's weird. I don't even know how to handle that. That's a whole nother session with me and Christine. I struggle with it is very cool. Right. I struggle with the compliments.
And I guess I'd like to say that we didn't bring up is, I don't know if I'm allowed. Well, of course I'm allowed. We started doing drips. And I'm really excited about that. It's just something that's in this journey that I can't explain.
So what is it?
But I've never had them in my life before. But because I just Christine tested all of my genetics, so she has been able to figure out things that work, don't work, and this is something that I'll be talking about more down the line, because I think it'll help so many people with anxiety. But I am allergic to things like gluten, and I am lactose intolerant, and all these things inflame you and make you anxious. And so because of that, I've been able to change not only, the things that I'm doing with her with EMDR and things, but I've been able to change my diet so that my anxiety is better. And then the drips she can talk about, it's things in my genetics that I need. I don't know.
What are the drips?
I just say, please help.
Yeah.
It's
a whole, they're nutrient-based strips. You'll see them from time to time. I think people think of them in the substance world as, ways to recover. You see them a lot in major cities. That's not what we're doing here. It's kind of a component of like functional medicine, but looking at the body and the mind as one, that your brain can't work the way it needs to work if it doesn't have the proper nutrition or nutrients to execute what you would like it to do. And if one of the things that you would like it to do would be to handle intense amounts of stress, then we better have a really great body. So I think about when we think about pro athletes, right? The reason these folks can perform at the way that they perform, this awe-inspiring, listen, I'm not an athlete. You have to trick me into exercising. Like, to watch these people perform at the level that they, and this because this is your work, Pete, right? Like what the grind they do, what their bodies can do, like just watching people catch footballs and not just want to go home after getting hit by a freight train of another player, right? But they get back in, they get it again. It's because of how well they're taking care of their body, right? So for all my folks that are not pro athletes, but their brains are performing like pro athletes, right? The CEOs, the on TV folks that I joke and I often say 3-1 Hollie, right? Like she has this ability like you guys can do. I actually am aversive to speaking publicly and being actually on TV. So great job, Pete, getting me out here. Is that there's this ability, the 3-2-1 Hollie, where she goes into this place that some people have it or they don't, right? Just like a pro athlete. But to do that, your brain has to do something. And to learn what's happening on a neurobiological level is huge. Learn your skill, learn your craft, and then learn how to take care of it. Because that 3-2-1 Hollie borrows something. That ability to perform, whether she had a bad day, whether her life was in complete shambles, whether she was sick as a dog. Asking your brain to do that is like a high-performing athlete. And you better condition it. You better be able to rehab it after you ask it to do these things. Now, I can actually translate that down to a mom with 3 kids and a job. And maybe one of those kids has a mental health issue, or maybe they're in a bad school system, or maybe their marriage is falling apart. You're asking your brain to perform at a high level and you're not taking care of it. And so it's really not that hard to understand how we get ourselves in the situations we get to, where we're being bad chemists, where we're doing things that we know we shouldn't do, when we're, slamming, McDonald's in a car, trying to just, get our nutrient, and we realize that there is a whole chemistry to ourselves. And if we kind of understand that chemistry and we understand what we're doing, well, we can become a pro athlete mentally. We can start to learn what our body needs, but we need some insight, right? So like I said, we do use genetics here as a tool. It's here. Why not use it? Why not, understand how the body reacts to things like inflammation? We talk about that gut-brain axis all the time now. These are things.
And I was obviously very concerned, not to interrupt, because of the drinking I did. So that's why I wanted to be tested and to make sure I was okay.
Yeah.
And then this was how I was able to give me the information of what I needed to do to help.
So if you think about, Pete, doing things quickly, right? I think about our statistics for sobriety are really low still, right?
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. And so we need to ask for better tools. We need to push the envelopes of what's possible these days, the knowledge bases that are out there now. And it's time to kind of just move. Let's go. Let's get going here. Let's look at things differently. Let's stop making this so personal and so character driven. And as a healthy curiosity to say like, why is this happening? Let's start asking those why questions a little more thoroughly and allowing people to have multiple ways of getting well.
Yeah. That makes total complete sense to me. And it's like next level, because I do talk to friends and other folks in athletics about the inflammation's a huge thing. Keeping that down and how that your brain functions with that, there's a lot there. How do you feel, Hollie, like with practicing this, like a little bit of a new diet and yeah.
I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. That's the truth. And I still cheat. I'm not going to lie. Like I can't, I'm transparent. Just the other, she said, "Oh gosh, what did you have?" Because I woke up all anxious and think of what I told you at the beginning. I'm Italian and Hungarian. I'm like paprikash and spaghetti. Like I grew up eating everything that's the worst thing for me. Yeah. So it's no wonder, like allergic to both of them. Mm-hmm. Didn't know that it was inflaming me. It probably gave me anxiety forever. But anyway, now that I have that information, if I do partake in something on occasion, I'm well aware of the effects of it. And I didn't put two and two together at first.
No one would. Yeah. No one. These are new things that we're learning, new science out there that we're able to get very quickly and relatively economically. And I just encourage people to continue to know themselves and know when something doesn't feel good, and to push people, push our professionals, push our healthcare teams. And if you can't do that, then we have this wonderful thing called the internet. And I know I don't want everybody becoming their old MDs, but listen, there's a lot of really good information out there. And with the development of like podcasts and throw Huberman out there, these are not just, people in their basement. These are, like Stanford professors that are out there trying to get this information out, trying to help us take responsibility for ourselves. We have to take responsibility. We have to seek out what's good for us. And we have to be willing to learn and willing to be open to change. Yeah.
Well,
Pete, I want to make a difference, and I know I'm going to.
Yeah, well, you already are. See, that's the thing. Even with somebody like me that's already in recovery, you've already, on days where I've maybe felt like, you've already given me a shot to keep me and move me. So I think it's important that you know that. Yeah. All right. Ladies, I cannot thank you enough. Hollie, I can't thank you for the time. Really, this has been really moving and special.
No, I'm really honored. Thank you for having me. And she doesn't give herself enough credit. I'm going to say that before we close, even though she says it's me. It's a team. It takes a team for this kind of stuff.
That's stuff. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, guys.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.